Let's get into the first big story. Breaking news. Breaking news from earlier today. Armed man who wanted to kill Brett Kavanaugh arrested near Justice's home. California man was in possession of a gun and burglary tools. The man, 26-year-old Nicholas John Rosk of Simi Valley, California, was carrying a firearm, according to Fox News. He also had burglary tools. The federal affidavit filed against the would-be assailant states Rosk was in possession of pepper spray, zip ties, a hammer, a crowbar, duct tape, and a tactical knife, in addition to a Glock 17 pistol with 2 magazines and ammunition. Sources for the Post claimed the man was angered over a leaked draft of a February Supreme Court opinion that could possibly signal the overturning of Roe v. Wade. They indicated he was also upset about the recent spate of mass shootings. This is clearly modern Democrat liberal politics motivating this guy to try and kill a Supreme Court justice. Now I want to show you this. This is the Southern Poverty Law Center's poll that came out 1 week ago. Section 4, partisanship and violence. Total approval for, quote, assassinating a politician who is harming the country or our democracy. Shockingly, younger Republican men, 1/3 of them agree with that. Younger Democratic men, 44%, the largest group, support political assassinations. Now, I know it's bad because we have this young Democrat-minded individual who is apparently he's charged with attempted murder. That's it, charged with attempted murder. Young Republican women were at 40% in support of assassinations, and young Republican men at 34%. Young Democratic women.
That's what I'm talking about earlier. You know, that's the other side of the aisle. That's what that's the concern, honestly. You know, I mean, you talk about violence in the streets. It's dangerous.
It's probably why the reason I would say young Republican men are probably the younger demographic, the least likely to support. Well, they're not. Young Democrat women were the least likely. Well, but I would say one of the reasons younger Republican men are lower in support of this is because many of them may have actually seen violence. Many of them are veterans.
Absolutely. But that's the thing. I mean, it's the younger group of people. You know, it's not the older group. So it's the next generation coming up that they're so frustrated with our political system right now that this is what they believe the alternative is. And it is. If people aren't being heard, that is the alternative. For sure. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. That's what you see it all the time. Well, those are where revolutions come from.
Another aspect to understand here is that the younger generation is more emotionally unstable, is more likely to be in poverty, has less ability for upward economic mobility, and is being dumped with big pharma medicines on top of having not harmonious relationships with partners. So when you add all of that up, you have the perfect recipe for radicalization, because if you look at what's been happening in the Middle East, you see a lot of guys who are not intelligent. IQ is also going down here in the United States. That's also a correlation with violence. So is poverty. So is relationship status. You see all of those factors going down. So politically, we are prepping the next generation of the youth to be violent people, especially when you look at the mind control that's happening on big tech social media that is pushing them to these radical ideas by censoring free speech, by censoring debate, and only allowing echo chambers to be heard, radicalizing individuals towards their political opinions even further, which is extremely dangerous. And to me, this is all being done deliberately, a part of a divide and conquer agenda. So people fight each other rather than look at the true culprits of the problems that are being created for them.
Yep. I would agree with that. I talk about it a lot, actually. One of my favorite days in my lifetime is actually September 12th, 2001. The day after 9/11, when, you know, we're still reeling in pain. Everybody's in shock because of what happened. But in that time, you know, the images that were coming out, people were covered in ashes from the towers and everything else. It didn't matter what color you were. It didn't matter who you voted for in the last election cycle. It didn't matter what your gender was or what religion. You were an American and we had your back. And that's what we have to get back to. If we don't get back to that, then what are we going to do as a nation?
I was there in New York City. The dust went into my neighborhood. And I also, I think we should be careful. After that, we also went into, Iraq. We went to Afghanistan. We got ourselves into a mess. There was a lot of cohesion. There was a lot of patriotism. But the political parties inside of the United States used it for their own personal advantage, helping the military-industrial complex, leading us astray with our foreign policy, creating a lot of devastating situations that I think, we're looking back on were absolute mistakes that we relied into.